Normally with these videos, I'm all, hey guys, check out this new pedal I got. Here's how it sounds. In this video, I'm still gonna show off a pedal, but it's more about giving me a solid and realistic, convenient platform to show off those other pedals at volume levels that everyone else in this house can live with. So I got a lot of talking, but I got a lot to say. Let's kick it off with a demo jam. You just heard the ReVolt. You also saw some screens from Genome in there. We'll talk about that all later. But the first guitar you heard was my Reverend Jetstream going into the DoD Looking Glass, going into channel 1 of the ReVolt. Transparent overdrive pedals are super tricky when it comes to recording with amp sims, which is precisely why I started out with this guy. Plus, the DoD Looking Glass is just like one of my all-time favorite dirt pedals. Don't sleep on this thing. Anyway, for the lead part with the Strat, I went straight into the ReVolt, set to channel 2. This is essentially a 3-channel analog guitar amp, but without the amplifier part. It's just the preamp. Channel 1 here is based on a Fender Bassman. It's got controls for bass, treble, gain, and volume. Channels 2 and 3 are based on a Marshall and a Soldano. Throw a little asterisk down there at the bottom of the screen for something we have to talk about later. They have a shared 3-band EQ and their own gain and volume. Let's take a listen to all 3 of those. There's also a boost function set by the white knob here. When you hit the channel that you're already in, it gives you that much more of a push. For completeness, we've got MIDI in and out so we can change channels and engage boost from something else. We've got guitar in, signal out, yeah. There's an effects loop. There's an aux in for practicing with an aux cord, I guess. Headphones out and a balanced XLR out. Now check this out. If we take the signal right out of here and treat it like a DI box, Yeah, that didn't sound good at all, so let's turn on the cab sim. It's not great, but it gives us a way to practice with headphones without needing a whole computer, and that XLR output could definitely come in handy if our regular amp decides to put on a smoke show in the middle of the first set. Now, in an ideal world, when inspiration strikes, I would just walk over to my project studio out back, I'd fire up an amp, throw a few mics around it, and get to work. Then I'd take my laptop and retreat up to the lounge loft area with a few comfy sofas, a fridge full of adult beverages, and an HO scale model railroad running around the perimeter on a double-track mainline, maybe a modest-sized industrial switching area. When I say I've got goals, those are the goals. In reality, I've got a small, old house, and I record most of my stuff late at night when everyone else is in bed. I tried miking my real guitar amps. Nobody was happy about that. I tried using a load box, the Shure Reactive Load, and then the Two-Notes Torpedo Captor. They let me keep the sound down, but I always felt like something got lost in the translation. My amp never sounded like my amp, even when the IR was for the exact same speaker and cabinet configuration that I normally play through. And I've gone through the totally ampless route as well with the Strymon Iridium, the Two-Notes Opus. I've also tried a bunch of plug-in based amp simulators, and those are great solutions. They're super convenient, really nice sounding, but one major problem for me. Let me put it this way. There's three things I'm after here. One is practical convenience. The smaller and simpler, the better. And until I get that studio, I need to keep the volume down. And I want to be able to record when inspiration and motivation strikes. Two, it's got to sound good. And that sounds really obvious, but this isn't a put a phone down on a table kind of channel. So I want a solid, clear signal that makes a compelling case for whatever point I'm making. You know, so you can actually hear the effect that I'm talking about. But number three, I want something that can take pedals and react the same way as a real amp. So here's what I'm going to do. Quick, simple, arpeggiated things, something I might want to go and record for myself. And I'm going to go through my PV Classic 30. I'm going to go through the ReVolt, and I'm also going to go through a Fender amp sim in Logic. I tried to match them up as close as I could, and you're going to hear it first going straight into the amps, and then through the DoD looking glass going into the amps. I kept the same settings on the pedal for all three environments, but no matter what I do, I always wind up with these weird clipping artifacts on the software side. It's like my man Lionel Hutt says, there's distortion, and then there's distortion. And it should really come as no surprise, because when we're dealing with a transparent overdrive or a Klon style pedal or even a tube screamer, but especially a clean boost, what we're doing is we're hitting the preamp with a specially cooked up signal that's going to make it react in a certain way. These pedals are designed around going into things like these and not things like these. And the ReVolt may not be the perfect solution, but to me, It's better than trying to do it all in software. I guess I still like to keep one leg in the analog world when it comes to at least the preamp of my signal chain. But obviously, after the preamp, we're still simulating the whole rest of it. So let's take a look at that. Genome by Two-Notes is an end-to-end simulated guitar rig in a plug-in simulator. So it's got amps, it's got cabs, it's got pedals, it's got studio effects, it's got these codecs things, which are AI captures of pedals and amps, and that's just a rabbit hole that I really want to get lost in one of these days. But here's the quick tour. If we're plugging our guitar right into our interface, we would start with an amp, and these are TSM amps. They all sound good. Asterisk down at the bottom for later. For our purposes, since we've already got our preamp and we just need the power amp, we'll pull up the power amp model, and let's go with 6L6s, because that's how I like to roll. But we're still not there yet. We still need a cab simulation. And Two-Notes uses these Dyne IRs. I guess that's how it's pronounced, dynamic IRs. If you've ever used IR files before, it's kind of like that. But instead of loading a new file for each minute change of microphone type and position, you just move them right here in the interface. I like this. I'm not going back to static IRs, but we can load a regular static IR file too if we have a favorite. And these Pete Thorne cabs right here are usually a good starting place for me. I'm just going to take the defaults here because once I start adjusting, I tend to lose the forest for the trees, but I still might just put a little more air between the speaker and the up-close dynamic microphone. But that's all I'm going to touch, I swear. There's also a very nicely visualized compressor that's good for bringing dynamics a bit more into a tighter range. And there's a basic studio reverb right here. There's more you can buy that look pretty interesting. But actually, since we're already in Logic here, already in our DAW, I can use whatever I want. And lately, I've really been digging the Ladybug lo-fi reverb from Safari Pedals. So here's the signal coming out of our ReVolt with nothing else. It sounds like this. Yeah, that by itself is no good. Let's turn on Genome and see what all that setup gets us. Before I go much further, let me just put it out there that Two-Notes is not sponsoring this. They didn't ask me to do anything. They haven't contacted me at all. I bought everything here with my own money. It's just that I spent a whole lot of time trying to figure this out. And when I posted a picture of this ReVolt the other day on my Instagram, enough people DM'd me saying they were looking forward to a walkthrough because Two-Notes is really good at coming up with names for things. Maybe not the best at explaining what they do and how they fit together in simple, non-marketing language. The Two-Notes ReVolt comes with a free copy of Genome, and it also gives you a couple of bonus Dyne IR cabinets to get you started that work really nicely with it. Or if you just want to plug straight into an interface, Genome itself is 79 bucks. I tell you what I'd really like to see. Channel 1 of this thing doesn't get into overdrive until the gain is like almost all the way up. And channel 2 is saturated from like 9 o'clock on. And I'm just never going to use channel 3. Give us some middle ground, Two-Notes. It's like your spectrum of overdrive jumps from smooth jazz to 90s grunge with nothing in between. And I'm glad that I can just use whatever pedal I want out front, but it would be really nice to be able to start from, oh, I don't know, a Vox or a Supro or, I don't know, maybe a PV Classic 30. Just thinking out loud. The thing that I love most about real tube amps is the dynamic range you get from your right hand, either from how you're attacking the strings or what you're doing with the volume knob. Last weekend, I played a backyard gig with this Rivera Venus 6, and I left it on the drive channel pretty much the whole time, just using my volume knob to modulate the gain. That's something really unique to a well-balanced tube amp. I've also got this 90s PV 5150, and I drag that out from time to time, even if one of those times it's gonna put me in the hospital. That amp is notorious for having no cleans, but it's got like 500 ways it can be set up for modern rock crunch. I love real amps. I love the variety. I love the character. I wish I could use them all the time. Until then, ReVolt and Genome are giving me what I think is the next best thing. And I'm sure some of you have found your own best fit solutions, and I want to hear all about them down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Also, just so I don't forget, hey, I really appreciate everyone sticking around. I know I haven't been posting as often as I used to. A couple other things have to take top priority for at least a little while, but the views that I'm getting on these videos have kept up and made it really rewarding. So I hope that continues with this one as well. And if you want a follow-up with more on Genome, I would be happy to do that too. In the meantime, please make sure you're subscribed, follow me on the Instagram, and if you're in the market for a ReVolt or a Captor or an Opus or anything really, try to get it from Zounds using my links down there in the video description. It helps me out tremendously. You have my appreciation. I'll catch you on the next one.